Island with my friends. We're just a group of friends that go and we protest. And yes, there is some direct action that's mirrored from other groups on Long Island, like the Animal Liberation Front, Earth Liberation Front, but that's only because we get the information out there so people know what is going wrong, what targets there are. And these are things that will eventually develop with time once a community is built. Huntington Life Sciences has been under attack since roughly 1999. Its major shareholders and brokers have been targeted. Its major shareholders outside from the public standpoint have been Stevens Incorporated, Oracle Company, and QuillCap Incorporated. Stevens Incorporated once owned 41 million shares of the stock. Oracle owned 12 million shares, and QuillCap owned 12 million shares. Warren Stevens, CEO of Stevens Incorporated, had an idea. He's going to go buy up stock in Huntington Life Sciences at 85 cents a share, and he's going to hopefully give them a loan of roughly $46 million. And he bought 41 million shares himself, and he said, if I give them this loan, they'll get back on their feet. They're a hurting company right now, and I'm going to go sell my stock back and make a ton of money off of them once they're successful. Unfortunately, he played his cards wrong, and with the national campaign of protest, direct action, and just all-out anarchy on our point, he saw that there was no money to be made in Huntington Life Sciences. And he found himself a target of protest himself. He found himself with paint thrown on his house in New York City. He found both himself and his butler's credit cards run up to roughly $200,000 each on various items, black roses sent to other people that worked at Huntington Life Sciences and other financial affiliates of his. And he realized that after that national protest down in Little Rock, Arkansas, that drew roughly 400 people in national media attention from all across America, that this was something that he didn't want, it was more bad for business to be involved with this business, that he was willing to cut his losses. His losses when he sold his stock back in January of 2002 were roughly $10 million. He lost personally $10 million and threw in the towel to us. We're a bunch of punk kids.
Bunch of weeds.
We're a bunch of weeds, and we were able to do that. Oracle was a much shorter campaign. Oracle saw us coming. They were afraid we were going to go up to Connecticut and have 3 days of protest against them, and go up with a couple of kids from Long Island, New Jersey, get up there and protest them at their homes once we found out their home addresses. We received the fax on a Friday evening saying we're going to sell off our shares. They sold their 12 million shares. When the World Economic Forum came to New York and people were protesting in the streets, we had a demonstration in Uptown against Parker Quillen, the CEO of QuillCap, which was also affiliated, was invited to the World Economic Forum party. So we thought it was fit to go to his house, protest him because of the World Economic Forum, and because of his involvement with Huntington Life Sciences through buying the shares with his company called QuillCap Incorporated. We took the protest to his house. Some windows were smashed out, some paint was thrown. There was roughly 700 people there. It was maybe the largest home protest that's ever happened in the United States of America. And 3 days later, he sold his shares. That was a 5-day campaign in total against him. And that's another thing that us punks, us weeds, were able to do. I don't know how much he took as a loss, but separate that from 41 million, he's probably taken roughly $3.5 million loss because of that. And that was over the course of 5 days. He threw in the towel and lost $3.5 million to us. So that's just another sign of hope that we can use in ourselves, that we're able to accomplish things if we implement these strategies. Huntington Life Sciences had a once high for their stock, which was labeled as HTDLY at $35. Huntington Life Sciences has since done 2 reverse splits. They do reverse splits where 2 stocks become 1. That's usually what a reverse split is called. They've done 2 reverse splits, and they did a 3rd split. And they do this because they try to fool stockbrokers into thinking that the price might be going up, so people will be more eager to take bids and then more outside public interest will be shown in their company. They did another split. This split was now from 100 shares to 1. 100 shares of HDLY stock became 1 share of LSRI stock when they incorporated here in Maryland to avoid and try and get anonymity for their shareholders. With doing so, if you crunch the numbers, you take the old HDLY stock and you hold it comparatively, the price has gone down from roughly $35 to 2 pennies. And that's something that we as punks, or we as weeds, or derelicts, or whatever you want to call us, have been able to do. So whenever you question your capability when you're sitting in that seat, if you're able to affect social change or not, simply look at those numbers. If you think a global corporation is something too big to attack, look at their Achilles heel and just look at this number and just say, they've gone down from $35 down to 2 pennies because of us. And yeah. And undoubtedly, HLS has lost. HLS has lost all its major public shareholders. It's lost its insurance agent. It's now been replaced with the Department of Trade and Industry in the UK. It has lost its auditor, also replaced by the Department of Trade and Industry in the UK. It has lost tons of stockbrokers and dozens upon dozens of market makers. These are people that take bids on their stock and do the trading for them. It has lost their transfer agent, a company called Mellon Investment Services, after a 5-hour campaign was waged against them. So they were out in 5 hours because the momentum that we're going with here, people just don't want to touch us because they're afraid. Lastly, they've lost countless suppliers. They've lost their food service industry. U.S. Food Service doesn't want to give them a catering hall anymore, doesn't want to give them any cafeteria food to be served at Huntington Life Sciences, so they're brown bagging it now. They've lost their janitorial services on numerous occasions. They've lost their lawn care service. These are all things that have happened because of the campaign to try and close down Huntington Life Sciences. If you so much as wash a car for them, you're going to be a target of our protesting. And this has been effective all across the board, from the investors to the people that washed our cars. Lastly, revenue has gone down now. Revenue right now is capped. It's roughly at a flat area. And the revenue was going up briefly during the time of our campaign against Marsh because it took advantage of that. Marsh was their insurance agent, and it took 9 months to try and get them to sever their ties with the laboratory. During that time period, they were building a little bit of revenue by developing contracts in Southeast Asia. They're utilizing contracts with customers, with future clients, to try and get more deals in the future, to get more revenue to pay back their debt. Huntington Life Sciences is $86 million in debt because of our campaigning. Most of that debt is due back in 2006. And it is our job right now to make sure that in 2006, they're unable to pay off their loans. And the only way that we could do that is to make sure that there is no revenue to pay those loans off with then. And we want to make sure that they keep on developing more and more debt. The way that we do that is we fish out future clients that could have business with them. We find out who their clients were in the past. We find out who their clients are right now. We find out who they have customer contracts with. We try to get the customers to stop being their customers, take their business elsewhere, stop investing their time and services in a laboratory that's associated with animal cruelty, punching beagle puppies in the face. Whole 9 yards. If you ever see the video, just take our newsletter. I'm sure a lot of you are already familiar with it. I'm just going to briefly massacre a quote from the Financial Times of London. Kevin, if you know the exact quote, please chime in. The Financial Times of London went and wrote an article on the Shack campaign and said that Shack is successfully succeeding at destroying capitalism where Karl Marx and the Red Brigades have failed. So, the what?
In the Bader Minor Brigade.
In the Bader Minor Brigade. So that is something that is very, very, very large. To hear that coming from a newspaper, that they're willing to say that about us, that's some posturing that we're not even willing to say ourselves. And that's coming from the Financial Times of London, that we're destroying capitalism. So if a small group of weeds and punk rockers and derelicts can do that, think about what a national, global movement can do to try and do away with sweatshops, do away with the destruction of the environment, the enslavement of the animal nations. And that's where a lot of my hope and strength lies. My hope and strength is basically in a newfound knowledge that these tactics are a way of taking on what we thought we weren't able to do. What happened in the 60s when fighting against civil rights violations, when fighting against the Vietnam War, when fighting for free speech, all the things that happened in the 60s were beautiful. All the things that happened then were examples of the best that a community can do. Right now, the way that we live today and the amount that global capital has taken over, we're dealing with a different deck of cards than the activists were dealt with in the 60s. No one should